to be a area for the DAO community. On the other hand, it's shared with the Divvy. So, you know, it's a collaboration in that he's providing this capability.
Yeah, there really isn't a DAO community anymore.
Focused on the DAO, but you know, something that that we will, you know, we'll have in addition to our WordPress site, as a you know, and of course link back and forth.
Yeah, I still don't like the WordPress site. I would rather it be Drupal like this is. But yeah, yeah, exactly.
So Jeff, let me ask you this: is what you've created here a generic website for any DAO, basically? In other words, is this something that is this a you know, something that can be offered to you know, whatever group that is trying to accomplish some collective goal?
Theoretically, this is open source software that's been around for a while by a company called can't remember the company right off the top of my head, but it's Open Atrium is the name of the software. It's been around for several years. It's getting better and better, and it's built on Drupal 7, which is not the latest Drupal, but Drupal is a content management system which allows you to make any types of content, not just blogs like wiki, like WordPress, or not just a wiki like Wikimedia or MediaWiki, and not just a forum, say PHP v3. You can instead just make any number of types of content, and it all is intermingling with each other. So if I wanted to wiki, like you'll notice that in the DivvyDAO Cooperative Toolkit, you'll notice there's a calendar, discussion area, documents, files, tasks. Those are 5 different types of content that you can now use in the DivvyDAO Cooperative Toolkit. And if you were one of the admins of the DivvyDAO Cooperative Toolkit, as Jim and I are, and you can edit anything in that, even if you're not an admin, if you have access to it, comment and leave remarks. But at the same time, just because you're an admin in DivvyDAO Cooperative Toolkit doesn't mean you're an admin over at Trustless Management.
Mm-hmm.
It's all separated amongst itself. Similar to the multi-site functionality that we're looking for Proven Secure, or whatever Rao was talking about last time we spoke. The multi-sites for WordPress. But in this, the middle bar is your main bar. Your middle bar has all the functionality in it. So you can go ahead and list all your spaces, create a new space, create a new section within a space. You know, depending on what the builder is trying to build. It's not very intuitive, this thing, because I haven't built any interfaces to make it intuitive. But instead, it's something that is literally blank. So you come in and you make a space, and you're now the admin of that space, and there's nothing in that space.
Yeah.
Adding sections. Say I want a forum, you add a forum section. Say I want a calendar, you add a calendar section. And now that calendar section is linked to that forum section because they're both in the same space.
So I mean, you as the creator of this, okay, what I would call a DAO website template, okay? Is that a reasonable term for what you've created here?
Not really. There's nothing decentralized or autonomous about this. This software is Web 2.0 software. And what I was trying to build here is a system that works the same way we're trying to do with Divvy, a system that works, so that when it comes time to make this decentralized and autonomous, we know what we want there.
Yeah.
Sounds like a standardization. You're creating some proper protocols.
Absolutely. I'm figuring out taxonomy and space management and project management in a holocratic way. Absolutely.
But if somebody, again, let's say a charitable group wanted to get together and they wanted to build their project, and one of the things they needed to build was well, first of all, they decided to use the Divvy platform, okay, a collaboration platform with all of its tools, and one of the tools would be this website format that okay, and this is where an enterprise, and I'm talking about an enterprise for you. I mean, if I was represented or you know, had this charitable group, right? Maybe it's a charitable foundation that's been formed around some endeavor, okay? And now I'm using, or we are using the Divvy platform, and you know, there's something on there that says web design, right, or site design, okay, and you know, to start off with, there's a link to what we're looking at here, and there's a set of you know, it explains the functionality and what you can do and so forth, and then there's a contact, right? And the contact goes to Jeff Anthony, and you know, at that point, the organization, my organization, hires you to add functionality. I mean, I know that this you know, this is basically open source, but you know, most people just don't, you know, they don't want to spend all the time to learn something new, to you know, do something, quote, for free. You know, it's not free. Time is money. And so I'm just saying, you know, this is a perfect example of how the participants create a situation where they can put food on the table.
And that's very true. And, you know, one of the things you have to keep in mind here is that, you know, a lot of us in this space, except for you and Brent, are not driven monetarily. We're not looking to get rich or to you know, we want to do what we want to do. But yeah, and we see a future where if everybody uses Jeff's stuff, he's going to get millions and millions of dollars worth of amps, which is a nice thing, but you know, it isn't. The goal is the system that that gives everybody that power.
Well, yeah, I mean, the assumption is
getting something for ourselves.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Jeff's kind of creating this functionality, and in the spirit of the Divvy, he's offering it to the world, basically, right? And there's no reason why somebody else wouldn't come along and essentially do the same thing and offer it to the world. And now there's two out there. Now you've got two options. And, you know, I mean, again, here's an opportunity for reputation, okay? If you've got 10 of them, you know, and they're rated differently, and I don't know. I mean, there's competition, right? Oh, I'll do it for, you know, I'll do it for 500 Divvy tokens. Well, this person will do it for 300, but you know, it just doesn't quite look as sexy as Jeff's what Jeff has, right? You know, I mean, you're creating a marketplace.
You know, Kendall, a church could use that system that's being built. 11th grade high school class could have a project with all the tools that are there. Save the Wildlife could say, we like that model. It just will, it's exponential.
Yeah, yeah,
The issue
yeah.
that got me on this track was a high school in the town that I lived in where there were 72 languages spoken. And that's exactly kind of why I started going down the track of collaborative yet information going across a ton of different languages. And you know, it was in the spirit of Ubuntu. Ubuntu, that was one of their claims to fame too. They wanted Linux to be used by humans in any language that they wanted. And early on, any language was one of their major goals. And now they have, I think, every language.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, the value proposition here, right in line with what you're speaking of, is that we want to go through all these Web 2.0 products. We want to go through all these types of processes, and we really want to determine what the best ones are. And you know, part of the value that I can bring to that is that I've probably beta tested everything that's come up in the past 12 years or so. So, you know, I've been a Google follower and an open source follower in general. So if somebody mentions a piece of software, I probably know the name of it and I've probably tested it out.
Right, right. Well, a huge resource, you know, and yeah, but you know, going back to what Brent was saying, I mean, I kind of got into the scenario Slack when Douglas Rushkoff initially got into it, and his example was, hey, can I use this? Well, no. What he said was, I have municipalities calling me up and asking me how they can use these principles, right? And I've spent a lot of time in trustee meetings and, you know, commissioner meetings and so forth with regard to projects. And so I know how they operate. And you know, I think my comment in the Slack was that at the level where this Divvy document is at this point, you know, some trustee from some municipality, you know, or council member or county commissioner or whatever, looking at it, you know, their eyes are going to roll in the back of their head, and they're just going to, you know, they're going to navigate away because they just don't have time to try to figure out what it is that the document is trying to say, okay? And that's where you know, we're talking about getting to a functional platform where someone clicks on it, and the first sentence they read, you know, that this is about you managing your own projects within your community or something like that. Okay, yeah, that's what I want. All right, and then the next thing, you know, here's the two. Here are the fundamental, you know, tools about accomplishing your goals. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, and they say, yeah, okay, I like that. And now they get down to the actual, you know, categories. They say, oh, wow, well, there's a whole section here for municipalities. And these municipal groups and da, 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 and then you go over there. Oh, we can. Here's a website. We can download the website, and all we have to do is tweak these things. And And guess what? Here's somebody who's willing to help us do it at a price we can afford. And so in a matter of, I don't know, I mean, it's like someone in that position, a trustee, for instance, takes this thing, initiates it, and can go to the next trustee meeting and demonstrate it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, and that's another part that could functionality that could be added, which would be presentation tools.
Well, you take any city council or county council or legislation with ID and a system to consider it, citizens or constituents, if they're proven, could go live time at a city council meeting because it's being streamed. It just brings open and transparency to the whole issue, and you get feedback instantly from the citizens. It's better than the closed system where people have to show up. It opens up the market, and this is a deliverable right here.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Well, and they do have mechanisms like voting in they have like near field or Wi-Fi little clickers and things that they hand out, and it's like I've seen this used in the county comprehensive plans. Right, which is a comp plan is something that, well, in Colorado they're mandated with certain types of communities. You have to develop and submit a comprehensive plan every 10 years, right? And this is a process that has to be as transparent as possible, inclusive of the community as possible. And they generally, towns will hire companies that are actually this is their business. They manage this process for the political entity. And but yeah, and they have clickers. They'll put a bunch of questions up there, and then everybody in the room will vote. Nobody knows who's voting. It's just, oh well, we've got 10 people for this and 5 for this, and and they absorb all that and they use it in their recommendations that they make to the board, right? So yeah, I mean, this could be a very powerful tool for municipalities. Let's put it that way.
The companies in that area might want to join the Divvy.
Say again?
The companies in that area who are providing services to municipalities may want to join the Divvy. I mean,
well, they might. Sure.
Their business is going to change, and they want to get on the blockchain. Blah blah blah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and we're going towards a vision of anonymous identity. So whoever is coming with a public key, you don't know if that's an individual, a set of people, 2 people. You don't know if it's 4.5 people. You don't even know if it's a whole company. So none of that matters. The only thing that matters is whether they're reputable and whether their deliverables are up to what you'd like to see. As a result of your task being fulfilled. So yeah, if you went and looked at, say, the Considerate website, and you said, "Wow, I want something a lot like that." Like I told Travis, the guy that built Considerate, I was like, "Yeah, could you make it strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, please?" And he goes, "I can't yet, but I'll come back to you." And he came, and then he changed the DAO to strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. which I hate to always be going on tangents. It's just how my brain works. But consider it as a great tool. But like you said, Jim, about the mumble thing on Consider It, we don't need a ton of tools. We want to try to boil it down and try to minimize tools. We want to find the strongest tools that interoperate within each other already to such an extent that we can detail out a process without a whole lot of work other than figuring that all out. So,
I mean, you want to try to make it as simple as, I mean, part of the goal of the Divvy should be simplifying processes.
Absolutely. And right now, a lot of my personal life goals have been to do that. And Google has been a major boom to my efficiency. Like we mentioned, scheduling events. And there was a website mentioned. Yet we already use Google tools for our documents and our spreadsheets and our calendar, so we should just add our events to that calendar. And there you go. Now you're not adding another tool. Now you just use the tool you already were using. And I've already set it up so when you add an event to that calendar, it automatically goes over to Slack, which is another tool we're already using. And
would you say, I mean, yeah, and Microsoft is trying to enter into, I mean, you got Microsoft Office, you can, Google has, is doing a lot of the things that Microsoft Office does. I like Google a lot. I've always kind of disliked Microsoft stuff. I don't know why, but it just never seems to work right for me. But my question is, so do you build functionality that's integrated with the Divvy platform from the Microsoft Office or Google, Google Docs or, these management platforms? I think you would probably have to do that.
Yeah, nobody knows what everything is going to look like yet, but I mean, within our web of trust, I know you guys, and I know your email, so I know that when I see that email, I know it's you, me personally. But in a trustless system, a contract could know that email. A contract could know that that change was made by that person and could divvy things out. And obviously that's a future sighted thing because right now contracts, I don't believe, are powerful enough to manage Google Apps.
Well, you're talking about a proxy function, basically, right?
Yeah, an oracle, essentially. Between Ethereum and any other type of service.
Well, let me throw something out here, and diverging back. I mean, I don't mean to bend it away from, sort of the user agent proxy discussion, that you opened up, but with regard to Google and Microsoft, okay? If this is the universal platform for advancing the human project, okay, that's this is the term I like to use. It covers everything that the good guys on the planet are trying to do. Okay, this is the human project, moving the human project forward. Okay, so if the Divvy platform is about managing the human project, okay, then pardon my phone. If it's all right, I keep talking. But here's my point. We were just talking about management platforms, right? We were talking about Google. We were talking about Microsoft. There are other ones out there. All right. So we developed this to the point where it's really a compelling platform, right? And why wouldn't we go to Microsoft, and why wouldn't we go to Google and have them sponsor in some way? Okay, I mean, sponsor in a way that they're not going to co-opt the effort, right? But they want to have the functionality from the platform to what they're offering. Okay, so you have them build it. Okay, right? You have them build the functionality into the DAO, into the Divvy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get some, you know, I mean, they contribute some money that that creates Divvy tokens.
Our current program for sponsors is like with Scenario, that they will match the Divvy dollars with amps, or match the investment with amps that they want. Okay, that's the sponsor. So that I mean, anybody who contributes gets Divvy dollars, but the money that they contribute goes towards the development within the Divvy. So
That's right.
It's integrated in the Divvy by the Divvy. And essentially, when a project comes up, we have enough resources. Let's see, we got us five on the project, and Scenario has agreed to back it with amps. Okay, so we have a budget of dollars, real dollars, that we can spend. Among ourselves, we make Kendall the manager. Okay, because if a project isn't managed, if somebody's not taking the lead in terms of facilitating the project, it's not going to work. Okay, this is what the research shows. So every project that has enough people in the bubbles in considerate has a meeting, chooses a leader, okay, and you know, a backup leader, you know, a second in command, so to speak, as a backup. And this goes back to the buddy system. They share the role, the management roles, but you know, there's essentially one person in Taiga who the project is assigned to, and the other people in the project are just watchers of that project. Okay, so they set up the project in a meeting like this. During the meeting, they create what they need to in Taiga, and the initial use cases and tasks, and they get assigned to sprints of development.
So Jim, could I stop you for a second? So you're describing how to jumpstart a project that could be adapted to what I was talking about, getting Google on board, getting Microsoft on board, getting whoever on board, and that this initial project would be jump-started using amps, basically.
Well, yeah, I was just giving an example. Okay, I'm giving the process here. I don't know if my screen's going to refresh ever here. Maybe I should do a reload. But anywhere we see consider it a group of people that want to work on it, on a project. Okay, like you're thinking about integrating to Microsoft Word or something, or Google Documents. Okay, and then the group gets together and either says, okay, we got everything we need to start on this. Let's, start writing code or whatever. Or we say, okay, we need to get some funding here. We'll scenario back us with AMPs. Okay, can we get support from Microsoft or whatever? Okay, so you get a project by getting a critical mass of people who want to work on it. Okay, and we're talking, and that's what so the job is when there's a sufficient number of people on a project and it's a high enough priority in terms of first things first, we want to facilitate there being a Zoom meeting of the interested parties. Okay, and we want to see what's necessary to get that process off the ground in terms of the resources that people are offering, and the roles that they'll fill in the project, and the roles that are needed, that are necessary, that aren't filled by the people who want to do it, and how they can be funded or solicited.
I have two things to add to that. One, I wanted to mention that in holacratic terms, there are 3 positions that need to be filled for each project, and that is the lead, the guy that determined that it needed to be a project in the first place is the lead, and the lead can be taken over by somebody that would be more effective lead if that ends up being the case. The 2 other roles, which the lead assumes by default because he's the first person in, are facilitator and secretary. So a secretary might have to take minutes or set up an agenda, while a facilitator might, set up a Zoom or a website. But the lead is like the thought leader, along the holacratic lines, you're talking about when you say, yeah, we need funding now, or yeah, we have enough people to go ahead with this project. But what ends up happening is that lead ends up attracting a number of people who can take certain, roles within that project. He can fill as facilitator in a secretarial role. There will be many other people as part of that project as well that don't have those 3 titles, possibly. But what everybody is committed to doing is seeking out certain tensions. And what a tension is the difference between what we have now and what we envision could be. So, for instance, we need money. The tension is we need money. Right now we have this, and what we need is money. I think we need money for this or that. So now there's a tension defined, and now people can now start attributing their efforts towards getting money, because that's one of the tensions that are defined and agreed upon. I also wanted to just also mention, along a little bit different lines, the differences between a project and a task. There is a difference, and a project has clearly delineated a time that you start, a time that you end, a budget, a certain amount of risk that we're willing to take. So a project is a clearly defined set of goals and objectives that need to be met. And if they start going past budget or past time or out of scope, then the project fails. That's all. You give up on the project. Somebody else might start a new project. You don't just keep going until the project objectives and goals are completed. Your project is defined within a certain set, and if If you do not get that done, the project fails. That's all there is to it. A task is one of the parts of the project. That's it. So, people might be getting paid for their tasks along the way, but the project still might never be concluded. And that's why we got a lot of vaporware, in the 80s and 90s, because they had a project set, and their project might have been like, we're going to make a video game for Nintendo, and it's going to be a racing game, and we want it to be fun with leveling. Right? And that might have been their project. What they failed to do was say, our project is going to start, July 1st, and it's going to go till July 1st next year, and it's going to be within this budget, and we're going to have this amount of people allocated to it. Like all those things need to be defined.
So can I interject something here? So why not set it up in a way there? Okay, you define the project. Let's say that Ethereum or Scenario is a sponsor. Let's say, okay, and there's so many amps that are assigned to the project. Okay, and now you've got the people who come into you define the tasks, you assign value in amps to each of those tasks, right? But the deliverable is clearly defined. Okay, so here's the project, here are the tasks, and here's the deliverable, and that's when everybody gets rewarded. In other words, as you're doing it, the amps are being put in a conditional wallet, or in in other words, you don't get them until the project is completed, and there's a time limit, okay, to deliver. And if the group doesn't make it within that time, nobody gets paid.
Yeah, and this is where we're going. First things first. We may not support. Amps. The thing we have is ETH, and that's our basic currency until we define the abstraction of the token, where we can peg amps to Ethereum and use that and trade those amps. Okay, that's almost right. But the amp donation would be traded for Ethereum in the beginning, and we would pay people in Ethereum.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, as far as amps and Scenario are concerned, what you're talking about is proving up the functionality of the amp.
Yes,
correct?
And we're hoping that with the alpha, we'll get source.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be able to use alpha amps.
Okay, so this is, what we're talking about is a motivational process. I mean, I know that Scenario is a very complicated, building all the functionality into Scenario is incredibly complicated, and time consuming, right? And as Jeff was talking about, you can get bogged down, and the notion of vaporware, in my experience, it takes all kinds of people to make something happen. Okay, if something gets hijacked by the ideologues, it can end up in endless talk, and maybe that serves that group of people. That's what they want to do. They just love to talk and debate and and there are other people who don't, who want to cut the talking short and get out the picks and shovels and start digging, right? And so the platform has to enable all of those things, okay? And I do believe that the reward structure is very, very important in incentivizing things. I mean, you could incentivize ideological points. I mean, if your organization requires some sort of a manifesto, for instance, right? Okay, well, let's incentivize getting the manifesto completed. All right, that serves people who are idea people, right? And then you go on from there. So. Yeah, I mean, just to add one thing, circling back to scenario and proving up the value of the AMP. Again, it's with cryptocurrencies. I mean, my understanding of the whole paradigm is that these are purposeful currencies. In other words, they are currencies that have built-in functions that fiat currencies, for instance, don't have. Okay, so the way I look at it is in the giving or the altruistic platform that I'm working on, and we can talk more about that at some other time, but I like to say that if you're donating $1, you're getting back $1.50 worth of value, right? So in the charitable domain, and you're going out to raise money from the public in dollars, you can demonstrate to them that, hey, the old model was you give $1, you got $1's worth of value. And under this new paradigm, you give $1 and you get back $1.50 in value, and not only that, you can track and know exactly where your dollar went to. Okay?
We're creating a completely different, a competing methodology. I guess my question is, when is payday? How does that work? How is that considered? Is it a speculative when AMP's at a high price, or I'm just trying to get down to the nuts and bolts of realities and.
Well, you're talking about, in other words, the sort of the volatility with regard to value and the whole speculative nature of cryptocurrencies. In other words, are you putting money in to do something, or are you just putting money in because you're looking for appreciation?
I'm looking for the motivational factor and meeting real life, deadlines and bills, and just as far as incentivization. I just need clarity in life because it's clearly defined. So it's kind of coming into when payday is. We've determined that 1 equals 1 USD. Sounds like there's like a base figure coming into it, so I can kind of count on that. The next thing is that in 2 months? Is that every 2 weeks? How much effort to put into something? How long I mean, these are the questions that we have to ask because we have things in life.
I'd like to comment on that. I think that if we start treating Divvy tokens as something that we trade off for money right away, Divvy tokens will not hold value ever. But if we start treating the Divvy tokens as something with value, that say Brent wants me to, build a website. or I want Brent to make some content, right? Like things that we're good at, I can give you Divvy tokens to make some content, and you can give me Divvy tokens to build a website. And me and you are only trading tokens back and forth, but we're not selling them out for dollars. So it allows the value to be to grow rather than simply, you know, like say we used amps for money, and I was going to pay somebody, you know, $3,000 for this month, and say they needed to put food on their table to the point where every month when they get their $3,000 worth of amps, it gets turned into $3,000 immediately. And that becomes to the point where me as a speculative investor, I can say, I'm pretty sure the AMP community does payday on the 2nd, so I'm going to sell out on the 30th and buy in on the 4th. You know,
yeah, arbitraging the system. But I don't know whether you can absolutely avoid that. But let's just say that there was a fund, okay, that was like the that underpinned Divvy tokens, okay, and so that Divvy tokens actually had value, okay, but they weren't directly convertible to money in that fund. In other words, it's sort of like looking at gold underpinning a currency, you know, and the old, you know, gold and silver certificates, you know, were redeemable in X amount, right? Okay. This is a little bit like that, but the point here, and this is where the you perhaps we get the speculators out of the Divvy tokens, because the only way to earn Divvy tokens is by doing something. Okay.
True. True.
Huh?
You can, you know, we're crowdsourcing. Anybody can buy Divvy tokens.
Well, okay, but and then what about the convertibility?
We're planning to. We're not planning convertibility immediately, but people can trade anything they want to trade, anything they have trust in. Okay, and this is what Jeff was saying. If we believe that the Divvy token is going to have a value, we'll accept it as payment, and some people will.
Well, and that has to come from convertibility. I mean, in other words, here's the thing. In these projects, you can have a kind of a closed loop monetary system, right? Or system of exchange, right?
Yes.
But at some point, there has to be convertibility, so you can go and buy milk and eggs in the supermarket.
Right, but this is not something we're promoting, or people can trade Divvy tokens on the market. They will get a residual income from it.
Well, okay, so convertibility, with somebody purchases 1 million Divvy tokens, okay? Where does that million, with using US dollars, okay? Where does that $1 million US wind up?
It's in an Ether wallet that belongs to Divvy.
Okay, and who manages that Inter wallet?
The Divvy leaders.
Okay, so now you have this is a hierarchy.
Well, wait a second. The Divvy leaders are overridable by 3/4 of the the Divvy.
I agree. Yeah. Okay. So what you have is something like the DivvyFoundation.org, right? And the the money, because they're the issuing authority, right? The token issuing authority, correct? I mean, there has to.
At some point, we're going to have to do that, but we're going to avoid it as long as possible.
Why?
Because it's an autonomous organization. It doesn't belong to the leaders. The leaders are changed all the time. Good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the governance question. When you start to have assets. Now you have legal, these become legal questions, okay? Sooner or later, something is going to wind up in court, I mean, this is just where we are now, okay? I mean, I'm just saying that,
we only donate to certain, to projects. We don't manage them directly. We donate it to a proven secure project or a scenario project or a group of 5 people that want to do something. We donate to them. Okay, it's not like we're hiring them.
When you say we donate to, are you talking we as individuals or as an organization?
We as the Divvy as a whole in the structure that we have, which
okay, and so there are various projects out there, and there's here's a bunch of tokens, right, that have been backed up by dollars, okay, and the projects are put up for a vote by the Divvy token holders. I mean, this is kind of like the DAO.
Everybody doesn't vote on anything. Okay, we post our intention to fund a certain project. We get feedback from the community. If there's if there's sufficient interest in the project, we as community managers, we sign it, and when we sign it, it goes into effect unless there's someone calls for a vote of the members, and it's really looking like 3 levels right now. You have the community managers, you have community leaders, and then you have the community. Okay, which the leaders are representatives. The managers are selected to be managers, and the managers.
Okay, so
we're really saying that there's a tremendous amount of flexibility. We don't, this is the structure of the Divvy and the default structure of communities within the Divvy, but we're going to have many other structures available.
So does that sound right to you, Jeff?
I just want to clarify something that's very important. You can't just come in with $1 million and buy Divvy tokens. Where are you going to do that? There's no exchanges that hold Divvy tokens, and there's no exchanges that would ever sell you anything for a dollar bill. What you need to do with your dollar bills is go buy Bitcoin or go buy amps or go buy Ether. And that's what you have to buy Divvy tokens with, not dollars. And in that respect, that's only if it ever hits an exchange. The only way it would ever hit an exchange is if people asked for Divvy tokens to be on the exchange to such an extent where the exchange wanted to do it, say Bittrex or Poloniex. We have to create a value before people are going to ask for that to be done. The value doesn't come because money is involved. The value becomes to something else. Money gets involved later. And if we build it in such a way that the money being involved is not our primary.
Yeah, you know, the proof of cooperation, I don't know if I interrupted you, you froze, Jeff, but the proof of cooperation is a stake in the Divvy. If someone gives us $1 million, we give them a stake in the Divvy that represents their cooperation. It's proof of cooperation with the Divvy.
You mean $1 million worth of Ether or Bitcoin?
No, $1 million worth of Divvy.
Okay.
And
I know, but I'm talking about the $1 million.
The misunderstanding here is that, you know, what I'm calling the Divvy token in the contracts we're having is the DAO token. Okay, we're just changing its name to a Divvy token.
So you really want to get $1 million and then make $1 million worth of DAO tokens that somebody's going to DAO have?
Absolutely. We have to give investors some stake in it.
But stake that gets hacked, there's no stake at all.
What?
Stake that just gets hacked like hell, like the DAO did, is no stake at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jeff, I think what you're saying is with regard to the way cryptocurrencies are programmed, basically, that with regard to a fiat currency, okay, a primary mechanism at this point is Bitcoin, right? So and there's because the market makers have a consensus that this is what it takes to trade dollars for Bitcoin, and we have all these mechanisms for storing them in wallets and so on and so forth, and it's all built around the programming, right? What you're saying is in order to provide convertibility for Divvy tokens, this is your entry point. Your portal is Bitcoin, right? So the cash goes to purchase Bitcoin. Now so a million in Bitcoin goes to the Divvy, the Divvy project management
a smart contract wallet, yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, through the management mechanism that Jim was talking about, the Bitcoin in that wallet can be converted to Divvy tokens.
Yeah, it's actually
projects.
It's ETH, not Bitcoin.
Okay, ETH, yes, ETH. All right, because they've set themselves up as essentially the de facto platform for managing cryptocurrencies, right?
The tokenization. They allow the tokenization of Ethereum.
Right. Yeah, yes.
Anything can be tokenized, though. For instance, amps are on the Bitcoin blockchain. Amps are a token on the Bitcoin blockchain.
Right. But let me see if I can't sort of bring this to a sort of full circle. Okay. So now you've got the Bitcoin. You can tokenize it, right? In Divvy tokens, and now you have a project which we talked about before, which has a goal, has tasks, and has a deliverable. And the management function that we talked about decides to tokenize that project, right? So that and according to the rules we talked about, which is okay, the tasks are well defined in terms of reward, and there's a time frame. And if the project, this is what I would call the fail-safe element here, okay? Or the fail-safe mechanism. and that is that you're guaranteed the deliverable at a certain price in tokens. Okay, so
not always, but go ahead.
Well, well, okay. Well, that's the point. If you don't deliver, Jim, let me finish. Okay, I'm talking about I'm talking about value for value. Okay, not getting something for nothing. Okay, and which is one of the sort of the moral hazard in some of these things where so and what does moral hazard do to tokens? I mean, if you put $100,000 worth of tokens into a project and you didn't get the deliverable and the tokens still went out there, what's the next group going to be thinking about those tokens, right? You just devalued your tokens. And the next time around, it's going to take a hell of a lot more because you just built in value that you say is there, but it really isn't because the tokens didn't do the work. It's like the Federal Reserve, printing money to stimulate the economy, and productivity really sucks. And the GDP is all about churning a bunch of money that's not doing anything. Okay, all right. That's the deliverable. The deliverable is where you match productivity to the product. Okay, that's my point here.
Well, if the Divvy manages the money badly, it should be devaluated. Okay, that's the right thing to happen.
Right.
Okay, it gives us the feedback that we did it. Now, everybody suffers to some extent if it gets devalued, but that gives us the incentive to have good projects that succeed and to make sure they succeed. That's
right. Yeah, but the reward comes when the deliverable is actually delivered. Now, you're absolutely right. I mean, in terms of sort of how creative you can be or need to be with regard to the deliverables. In other words, can you have I mean, the bottom line is if you've got people who need to put bread and butter on the table and they need a paycheck, then you may have to design the project that way. Okay. In other words, if they're full-time and on a Divvy project and they're being compensated with Divvy tokens, they need the utility to convert those tokens to something they can take to the grocery store.
Right.
I'd like to interject there.
We pay them ETH. Okay, we pay them in ETH. They don't have to convert the tokens if they want. If they're working for, if somebody donates $1 million and we set up bounties for all tasks involved in the delivery of that, the people have a choice of whether they want Divvy tokens or ETH. Okay, for that, and the stake in the project belongs to the person who paid for the ETH. Okay.
I'd like to interject something if I could.
Yeah.
I get what Jeff is saying, that, if you get paid every 2 weeks, somebody's going to wait until the day before to buy in, because I'm looking at that with AMP. I'm figuring somebody's going to need some money to put, pay rent or something, I might as well wait until I see a big red line. So I get what Jeff's saying. I get what you're saying about convertibility. But at the same time, I don't care if we're talking Chuck E. Cheese tokens or the US dollar and just a paycheck. It's like if I earn that, if I want to go to the bar and go spend it all a round of drinks for everybody, that's what I need to do. Feel like, but I just kind of like to know going in, when is that going to happen? Because I do need to convert that. These are all real life situations, and I got to factor in how much time do you spend in the project, how much quality do you put into your work to do all of that.
At minimum 9 months.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying. It's like there's no way I'm
going to go into effect.
I'm going to get starved out for that kind of speculation. It just, I guess I didn't make my millions in Bitcoin, and I'm not retired to the point that I could just keep putting in work. That motivational factor would go away real fast for a guy like me, just because I need to focus on retirement and other.
Yeah, you'd probably be more likely to go get a job where you might be making US dollars, or you know what I mean, that kind of thing. But the value proposition of the Divvy would be something a little bit different, where it would be, I'm earning Divvy, which I can trade it for other people who want Divvy to do work that I cannot do.
Yeah, and Kendall and others are working on bringing in funds to the Divvy so that we can pay ETH to those who want to cash it out.
Right.
And
I think that's a terribly bad precedent.
I see what you're saying. I guess I'm just not in a position to float things out and save every paycheck that I have. I'm not that kind of American.
Yeah. Well, you're saying
nothing delivered for a while. Sorry.
No, I was just responding to Brent. Brent, you're saying, well, gee, I want to do this task. I want to do it, and gosh, I'd love to be making a living in the Divvy, on the Divvy platform, right?
Not just a living, but know that if I put in the work, that I can get rewarded for it on a timely basis to meet needs. I mean, this is
well, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, and so there's a tension between the deliverable, right, which is the end point, right, and the maintenance factor, right? I mean, if something's going to take 6 months for the deliverable, then and you need to get paid weekly, right? Then that, if you're going to participate, that mechanism has to be built into it, okay? And the tension here, if I can use that term, is between paying people and not have, but at the same time, in the end, not delivering the deliverable, okay? Then the Divvy tokens, or I guess in this case we're saying ETH. What we're saying is we spent a bunch of money on a failed project. Okay, so my point is, can you slice up the project into small enough deliverables that you can get value for the smallest increments, even if you don't deliver the final deliverable?
Well, I would put it in the quote that
contracts that were submitted to the DAO, okay, they were not one deliverable, and the way that we normally define the projects is by listing all the use cases that you're going to demonstrate. and you can assign a portion of money to each use case as you go along in the project, and each time you can demonstrate another use case, okay, that releases a certain amount of ETH.
Well, yeah, and so you could say that I mean, if you propose a project, right, and you structure it, and you get the managers, right, to approve that. Theoretically, you're approving it according to the conditions that were made very clear to the investor. In other words, the person who put the $1 million in to purchase the Bitcoin, right? And so there, you can build parameters into that giving or that investing, however you want to call it, so that you can sustain short-term rewards, right? The weekly paycheck in ETH.
Correct.
Okay? So that you're not, the whole point here is that you're not creating expectations that are not met, so that you know, the whole reputation of the project goes away. Correct?
Correct. And the agile methodology with continuous deployment, okay, means that each user story in principle goes to production, okay, independently to some extent. And it's different from the classical problem where you're building a whole thing and you don't have anything until it's done.
Right.
Guys, it's tough to build a competing methodology and just an alternative when you can't fit in that competing methodology. It's just like, why build something if you're not even going to be inclusive in that? It's not going to work for you. You know, I'm always kind of concerned about, you know, I've heard about some speculative, you know, pay with certain cryptocurrencies, and you always got to wonder, is somebody going to play the market when they pay you? What's going to happen with the volatility? We just see huge spikes in that. And the other thing is, you just don't know when it's going to happen. Or I've had, in the real world, I've had employers, one in particular, who you couldn't trust them as far as you could throw them. And, you know, that's the real world. It just kind of comes down to, you need to count on, you know, expectations are, you're doing the work. You need to get paid for it, just because it's just, there's cost of living. And we all have value, and I think that's what we're trying to do, is to create the work and do the best that we can, but it has to be an incentive. I don't care if we're on a private island, we all have work to do. There has to be an incentive at the end of the day to do the work. Either that, or you're better off going on the other side of the island.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's what we're talking about, is the incentive. In other words, Jim is defining it as get paid in ETH and get paid on a weekly basis, right? That's what you're talking about when you say incentive, right?
Well, the sprints may be 2 weeks.
I haven't.
All right, look.
That's what I'm trying to arrive at.
Yeah. Look, you know, I mean, whatever it is, whether it's, you know, bi-monthly or you know, but I mean, what we're talking about, you know, this is why we have corporations, you know, LLCs and C corps, you know, where an entrepreneur invests money to create a project, you know, create a product and hires people to do it. Okay, that's the legacy model, correct?
And you know, when you know, if we're starting a project in this group, we can use any model we want. Okay, we can create the model, you know, and you know, then it becomes a matter of trust. I mean, do the leaders of the Divvy trust? Say, here's the ETH. Okay, we trust you to deliver the project. Okay, or
yeah, that's right. I mean, and look, I mean, it's like let's say Brent goes to his church group and says, "Hey, I've got this really great idea, and here it is. And what I'm proposing is that we manage it on the Divvy platform, and we're going to do this with cryptocurrencies because guess what? We can get a $1.50 of value for every dollar that's invested in Bitcoin to back this whole project. And you know, here's a rough outline of the project, and here are the tasks, and here are the deliverables, and this is the tasks that I want to do, okay? Me, you know, and so you create the project, you create a place for yourself to get paid. You can choose ETH or Divvy tokens. The ETH will take care of, you know, the bread and butter, and the Divvy tokens might be a little deferred, you know, speculating on future value of Divvy tokens. But the point is that whoever's funding this project using fiat currency, okay, they're the ones who are taking the risk. The risk here is that Brent doesn't perform, and he gets paid for something he didn't really do, right? Productivity that didn't happen, but it's about the risk, okay? And if you're the one who, if Brent creates the project and convinces people to bring money in, then you know, they assume the risk. And oh, by the way, I mean, Brent has a reputation to uphold here. So, you know, guess what? Instead of quitting at 5 o'clock on Friday, he may work all weekend on the project, okay? Because he's worried about his reputation. He doesn't want the church people saying, boy, that what a shyster that Brent guy was. You know, he built up all these expectations and, you know, walked away with the ETH and we never saw him again, you know? I mean, right?
Oh yeah, it's scam artists all over in cryptocurrency, and that's the problem.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know, that what I just laid out doesn't solve the problem in all cases. But I'm just saying this ties it back to the investors' expectations, right? You know, that maybe there's, you know, there are going to be projects where there are short-term revenue needs that fall before a concrete deliverable. Right?
Oh yeah, you have to deliver on your commitment. I mean, that is the expectation, and you have to give the customer what they want above and beyond. I mean,
yeah. So I mean, I think that this is the kind of thing where you have to create a project and you have to jump in. I'm talking about right now, you know, this Divvy platform needs to be developed to a point where it can actually be a platform for managing a project and can get some funding in. Okay, now, you know, I mentioned Google and Microsoft as possible sponsors. I mean, why wouldn't they come in with $1 million and buy Bitcoin and put it into a Divvy project's wallet under certain conditions, right? And then come up with whatever the project is, okay, which maybe is building, you know, I don't know. I mean, there's a, obviously in order to build the functionality of this platform, it's going to require programming resources, right? For one.
The interruption with Microsoft products. I know many people who want to integrate with Open Office because it's closer to the, it's open source, and we integrate.
LibreOffice.
What?
It's not, Open Office isn't open source. It's owned by Oracle. LibreOffice is the open source.
LibreOffice. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, does that kind of make sense? I'm looking for a way to jumpstart this thing and get some money into it.
Oh, partnerships would be huge. I went to Seattle Ethereum, and they had Microsoft Azure. They sponsored the whole thing. They rented out the room. It was like the bottom floor of like a shared office studio downtown Seattle. Drinks. They wanted their name on it. Just like you look at DevCon, the conference.
Yeah.
The open source. They wanted Microsoft Azure to be seen.
Right, and that's a platform for entrepreneurship, right? I mean, Azure isn't it?
I'm not. I tend to gravitate towards Linux. I don't pay too much attention to Microsoft these days.
Uh-huh.
Well, Azure runs whatever you put on it, mostly Linux. All the stuff they were sponsoring were Linux stuff, like Expanse and Ethereum and a lot of these blockchains.
Yeah, they're offering free service for like a year. That's pretty significant to get people on the Azure platform. Most of the people I know think it's a real pain in the ass and they don't like it. Much rather go on digital.
Typical Microsoft.
Yeah.
It is kind of a pain.
Group think, huh?
I think letting people buy into Divvy with Bitcoin and Ether is a bad precedent. I don't think speculation will give any value.
Okay, so
dollar bills into the system. That's not what creates value for the token. What creates value for the token is what you can do with the token, not what you can decide to do if you don't want the token.
well, MakerDAO, according to the guy that was here earlier, has gone to a two different token system, and maybe we should look into what that is and see why they did that. But
Many DAOs have a two token.
This goes back to what Rush was saying about the wrong perception. The fact that the Divvy token will probably attain the value at some point, assuming we're successful.
Not only that,
Assuming we use it wisely. Okay? If we create $1 million worth of value out of the $1 million given to us by Microsoft, and then have a Divvy token stake, okay, that's the way it should be. I mean, it's
I wouldn't want to be a part of anything like that. What I would want to be part of is something that's creating value from the token. Microsoft giving $1 million for something is A-okay as long as they get nothing from it. Nothing. What we could use $1 million is say paying me, you, and Brent until tokens actually become available, and then we get no tokens.
right.
Well, what I'm saying is that tokens get created out of doing projects and creating value. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Now, Jim brings in ETH, which is convertible in the short term. Okay. But I guess my point here is that because the Bitcoin that underpins the Divvy tokens, all right, is you know, from my viewpoint, those are not speculative funds. Okay, they vary in value based on the Bitcoin marketplace. Okay, that creates a management challenge. Okay, if you're using Bitcoin, which they're just the same as a dollar or euro or whatever. I mean, any enterprise that is using a currency has to factor in inflation, has to factor in. I mean, and when you're doing international trade, you have to factor in the convertibility as that changes, and so my point here is that I don't know. I mean, if you create the mechanism to create the tokens based on the deliverables in a project, they may, as more and more Divvy tokens are created and so forth. Yeah, if there's a way for people to, collect them in their wallet, at some point, a market would develop organically, because the understanding would be that these Divvy tokens represent actual work, actual value. Okay, and that's a management function. Don't put out too many. Don't give away Divvy tokens. Don't reward to a great extent work that didn't deliver any value and so forth. Okay, so you're not starting. That $1 million hasn't suddenly created a marketplace in Divvy tokens. It's just enabled the generation. Well, it's like the fuel for the platform.
Yeah, if we were going to attribute $1 million towards the development of this platform, then we developing the platform should earn no Divvy tokens, none, because we got.
Why not?
Because
you have a choice. You have a choice of Divvy tokens or ETH.
You don't, because we have no ETH, and right now we have no Divvy tokens.
Well, if they give us $1 million worth of ETH, we'll have a lot of ETH to pay people with.
That's a huge
if.
And it's an if that I wouldn't agree with, and I wouldn't go out and try to get, because the $1 million would be nothing, do nothing but make Divvy tokens worth less, not more. It doesn't increase the value; it decreases the value.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Jeff, in terms of absolute value, because you don't want to create a dump situation, just because somebody needs to go pay rent or something like that. Because I think the value is totally value added with everything in the platform. Why cheapen it?
Yeah.
And the idea that we're going for is $1 billion idea, not $1 million.
Okay, so I mean, if that's, if we can't get you and Rush past that blind spot, then Kendall's effort in marketing this will have to be through free trust and trust tokens.
Well, that brings me to the two-token system. Free trust, identity, the token. That's going to be the other token that we're going to need in this system. Acme has the same thing. They have a reputational token and they have a token that's tradable. You mentioned MakerDAO, two-token system. Augur, two-token system, Rep, and a stable coin. The DAO, two-token system, right?
Yeah.
DAO and reward tokens. So a lot of DAOs have a two-token system. One of those tokens is not tradable because it hinges upon your reputation to some extent.
I guess I have a little trouble calling it a token. It's like Rio in scenario is not a token.
It is a token, it's just not tradable.
Well, I guess it's a, it's not considered to be a token by Greg or Dor.
That's just because they don't understand it then.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. So the tradable versus non-tradable aspect, I consider to be part of a higher level thing, which is a ticket, which I guess you would call a token also. It's a contract, and but it's very specific. It's like all tokens are equal, but in terms of reputation, every rep token has its own characteristics.
Yeah, a token is pretty much a smart contract that keeps an array of addresses and who owns how many tokens in that address. That's it.
Right.